reports webinar live stream. Well, hi everyone. Welcome. Welcome to you live again.
Hang on, I'm not sure. We got a lot of audio feedback. Give me a second.
Live stream. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to you live again.
All right, fix that up. Sorry about that. Yeah, we've got our team here. We're excited to be with you again. We're going to be talking through reports today. We're expected to run about 40 minutes to give you guys lots of tips and tricks on reports. It'd be great to let us know where you're coming in from. So please feel free to join in the chat. We'd love to know where you're coming in from, and of course, if you have any questions through the beginning of the webinar, the start of the webinar, when Heather, Thomas, and David are speaking, feel free to throw them into the chat. We had a bunch of questions come in advance as well, so we'll be answering questions if they're relevant during the live stream, and we'll also be answering questions at the end. So thank you so much for joining in. I can see Toronto, Iceland, Seattle. We got lots of Rwanda. Fantastic. Great to see you all. Thanks a lot for joining in from Quebec as well. So great to see you all. Just wanted to say that this will be recorded, so you'll be able to view this at your leisure after the event. My name's Paul Edney. I am the VP of Marketing and Sales for Cordine. You're getting lots of emails and various things from me and my team. We also have I've been with Cordine for about 13 years. We have Heather, Thomas, and David. I'll let them introduce themselves. Heather, do you want to start off?
Sure thing. Thanks, Paul. Hey, everybody. My name's Heather McCarthy. I am a private pilot flying for fun, and I've been with Cordine for about 7 years, currently VP of Service and Operations, and really happy to be here.
Great. Let's pass over to David.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. First of all, welcome. David, I've been with Cordine for just over a year now. You would have seen Lee mainly doing support, a few of these webinars as well. Commercial pilot myself, of course, until, well, the beginning of this pandemic anyway. Speaking to you all the way from Belfast, Northern Ireland. So excited to be here today. So thank you very much for joining today.
Great, thanks, David. And Thomas.
Hi, everybody. My name's Thomas. I'm a private pilot as well. But I've also worked in the airline industry for a number of years doing airline operations. I've been with Cord for about 5 years, and I am the manager of customer support.
Right on. Well, we'll get right into it, I think. Heather, I think you're first up, so I will share your screen and we can get going. As I said, if you have any questions as we're going through the event here, please feel free to throw them into the chat channel. We'll either answer you in the chat, or as I say, if it's relevant to the conversation, we can answer the question in flow, or we'll answer at the end. So let's get rocking. Heather, I will add your. Here we go. All right, fire away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also, just really quickly, a quick shout out to those of you who have been to our webinars before. This is our official 5th webinar since we started doing them in April. Welcome back. It's really good to see you guys. And for those of you just tuning in for the first time, we're also really glad to have you with us. I hope everybody is able to find some useful information and walk away with some additional facts and features and things that you may not have known. So, starting right off with a quick overview of the reports within LogTen Pro on my Mac. When you open LogTen, it's going to usually open to the Logbook tab. You'll be able to find the reports in the upper tab along the top panel here, and over in the left-hand panel, you'll see a breakdown of the 3 major sections of reports that we offer. We do offer quite a few. A quick overview with the overview section would be, it includes experience, summaries, duties and limits, and graphs. Within the experience subsection, you'll find reports such as the FAA IACRA summary or the flight experience detail. This one is often recommended to have as a sort of cover sheet to go along with your professional regional printout. It provides sort of a quick reference and summary of hours flown under different conditions and in different seats, as well as a separate summary by class and engine type. So it's a really handy report to be able to have. In the center logbook section, you'll find not only all of our regional reports organized by country, but you'll also find a number of general reports, a few which I'd like to just quickly point out. If you haven't noticed them already, we do have a Cordine International logbook report, which is a sort of generic report that encompasses some of the most common fields and columns that you would want in a logbook, but maybe you don't have a particular regional one that you're wanting to print out at the time, or maybe you just want to see some generic information. This would be the place to go. One quick note also, if you hover your cursor over any of these reports, you're going to see a really handy pop-up that will let you know exactly how many rows each of the reports includes, and then also what size of paper the report is designed to be printed on. At the bottom of these pop-ups, you'll see a link to one of our partners that offers professional logbook paper that will come in the variety of sizes that we also offer. We do have a number of other partners as well that you can find on our website, but for most intents and purposes, before you even decide to generate any of these reports, it's a good idea just to make sure that the number of rows lines up with what you're expecting, and that you have the paper or can get access to the paper that you're needing to make it look the most professional. For our regional logbooks, I know we have quite a few people joining us from Europe. We do have a full portfolio of the EASA compliant reports. Here in the US, one of our more popular reports would be the LogTen Pro Pilot Log 27. Moving on really quickly to the more section, we have a certificate subsection. To highlight here would be our basic endorsement. Those of you familiar with the Jeppesen style logbooks, paper logbooks, you'll notice that there's basic endorsements at the very end behind all of the regular logbook pages. This is where you'll find those to generate a report of all of your endorsements that you have loaded into LogTen so that you can print them out and put them in the appropriate place. We also have a number of exporters. You may not know, one of our ones that we'd like to highlight are the Google Flights exporter, which is flights with routes. It generates a KML file that you can open in Google Earth and be able to see the selection of your report for whatever you choose on the Google Earth map, and that's pretty neat. The last section down here is My Reports. If you don't see that in your logbook, don't worry. It just means that you don't currently have a custom report installed. But if you do create a custom report, or if we create one for you, or maybe perhaps you've downloaded our logbook audit report, which we'll also talk a little bit more about later, this is where you'll find it, is at the bottom of the More section in the My Reports folder. The last thing I'm going to do before I hand this off to Thomas is I'm just going to walk everybody through the generic or recommended way to generate a logbook report so that you can get that PDF file. I am going to make sure to use a sample set of data. So we're going to do last 90 days. And in the report section, I'm going to use the LogTen Pro Pilot Log 27. One quick thing to note, down at the bottom, you'll see there's options to filter the report that you generate by a custom date range or by these preset date ranges. And then over in the right-hand corner, you'll notice that it lets you know that there is a selected group. So that selected group is the last 90 days. And you can either double click on the report or you can click on Generate Report to get an in-app preview of what that's going to look like so that you can quickly scroll through. Maybe you want to go to the bottom and make sure that it's displaying all of the totals that you're wanting. And then before you actually generate the full PDF, maybe you want to, I'm going to back up for just a second. Maybe you want to see what it might look like before you generate the PDF, just to make sure that everything looks great and contains the data that you're wanting. So in the bottom right-hand corner, there's an option to print, save as PDF. If you select that, you'll get a dialog. And the very top option in that dialog is to open in preview. So it's a sort of preview within a preview. And let me drag this window over so that you can see And what this will show you, as if it were an actual PDF, is you can now see the total number of pages that that's going to generate. So we can see that's 13 pages. At the bottom of the 13th page, again, you can check totals. You can see that there's a signature line. There's also an option if you like to view 2 pages at a time so that you can see the margins are very clearly defined. There's lots of room here on the A and B pages for punching holes after you've printed to put into a 3-ring binder or a bound logbook. And then you can preview and scroll through the pages and just make sure everything looks great. And moving ahead with the actual generation of the PDF, back again in the print/save as PDF option, and then the bottom left-hand corner dialog, we get the option to save as PDF. And now you'll get to choose where you'd like to save that. I have already created a folder on my desktop to be able to save this Jefferson Pro Pilot Log 27. I'm going to select save, and it's going to save those 13 pages. We can now exit the preview. And if we wanted to see that PDF file, I've got it right here. You can double click on it now and it's going to open within the preview app. Get this resized again really quickly, please forgive me. And you can print from here, or you can again go through the preview and just make sure everything looks great. And then of course, this file is what you'll need if you want to be able to send it as an attachment. Either you can send it to yourself via email, you can send it to FedEx or Kinko's for a quick print job. They usually do like a spiral bind too with a cover sheet if you like, or for a professional printing service. And that's the PDF file that you're gonna wanna send them. I'm gonna go ahead and send this over to Thomas now, who's gonna show you the different ways that you can do this within iOS versus Mac. Thomas, over to you.
All right, here you go.
Great, thanks, Heather. All right, so since LogTen Pro is 2 apps, we definitely want to show you the same stuff on the iOS app. So I'm just going to do a real quick, brief overview of these steps on the iOS. On iOS, you can find the reports at the bottom, tabs, and you'll see the same fields here for reports that Heather just talked about, the overview, the general logbooks section in the middle, and the more section here, where you can find certificates and exporters. One main difference I want to point out is that if you want to change regions on iOS, you need to select the Change Region button here, and you can see all the countries, the regional countries, Indian reports, the Brazil report, and then that will change your region. So you have to go to Change Region, and then that will display the region that you want. The other thing that I want to talk about is a little bit difference in report generation. So if I was to go to look at a JEP 27 and I wanted to print this on iOS, I would select the report. Oh, the other thing I want to point out is Heather mentioned on the Mac how if you hover over the report, it'll have a pop-up window that shows you the information like rows per page and the paper size. You can get that same functionality on iOS by single clicking on the report, and it will give you that additional information. On iOS, when you've chosen the report you want, you have to go to Configure Report, and you will get this pop-up screen, which we will talk a little bit more about later. And I do not want to sit here and generate a whole report, so I'm just going to go to the last 90 days, and then you select Generate. And here you can see the report. It's visible, you can look at it, and then when you want to save the PDF, you go to Save PDF in the top right. Then you can also view your report as a PDF. And when you want to send it to yourself, you select the Share button, and you can airdrop it. Or the most popular method is to email it to yourself. So those are just a little bit of differences between Mac and iOS. I would now like to pass it over to David, who's going to talk about all the ways that the display options that you can change within the report.
All right, David, I got you on screen.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So we'll go back to that report that Thomas had on his screen in just a minute there. So far, we've been talking about the reports, different types of reports that you can generate, how to generate them, etc. But what about the actual content of the reports? So all the reports in LogTen Pro, obviously, we want the reports and we want our logbooks to be an accurate description of what we have got in our logbook. So here in the logbook tab, you will see that in this case, I've got all of my airports. The airports have the ICAO format. My time format is hours and minutes. And then for the flights that do have out and in times, which I can't seem to find one at the minute, but they are set to be in UTC. So if I were to generate a report, that's exactly how it would look. So let's look into this in a bit more detail. If you go to LogTen Pro here at the top, then click on Preferences, and then once the dialog is open, you click in General. You will see quite a few options, quite a few ways that you can customize your logbook in the way of how it's actually going to look. For those of you that are listening with an iPhone or an iPad, Thomas is going to get to how to bring up this exact screen in just a minute. But the gist is exactly the same. In this case, you will see that, as we mentioned, flight time format is in hours and minutes. My dates and times are set to be displayed in Zulu. And then the airports, for example, will be displayed in ICAO. So if we were to generate a report exactly like this, so I've got it pre-generated here for you. So then you can see that all of the airports show with the 4-letter ICAO format. All of the flight times are in hours and minutes, etc. So let's take this first flight as an example. This flight here from Foxtrot Lima Sierra Kilo to Foxtrot Alpha Oscar Romeo, which in this case is Ndola and Johannesburg. And then the flight time is 2 hours and 12 minutes. So just bear that flight in mind for a second, and we'll come back to that. So if we go back to the logbook now, and then once again, go to LogTen Pro, Preferences, and then General. Let's say that now we want hours in decimal. You can actually show 2 decimal places, but we'll stick to 1 for the time being. And then we want our airports to show the IATA format. So then you can see that all of my numbers here have already changed to numbers in decimals. And all of the airports here, the ones that have an IATA code, have already changed to it. So if we were to generate a report now, then you will see that the report mimics exactly that. All of the airports have a 3-letter code, and then all of the flight times have already been changed to the hours and decimals. So back to that example that we were talking about earlier, this flight here on the 25th of September. Now, Foxtrot Lima Sierra Kilo has become November Lima Alpha, which is the IATA code. And then same again for Johannesburg, it has changed to Juliet November Bravo. The flight time that was 2 hours and 14 minutes is now showing as 2.2. Now, we have, in this case, we have changed the hours from hours and minutes to hours and decimal. And then we've changed the places from ICAO and IATA. But you will see here that there's a lot more things. And then obviously you can customize these in any way you want, in any combinations that you want. So as well as being able to generate well over 130 different types of reports, these reports will always look exactly like you want them. So moving on, we have so far been generating just reports in general. But what if you want to generate a report with only a portion of your data? So this can also be done. Thomas demonstrated earlier the last 90 days, but what if you wanted, for example, here, generate a report from one of your smart groups? So in this case, we've got a smart group with my P28 time. What if I just want to report with that? It is definitely possible, but now you'll be wondering, what happens with the totals? Obviously, when you generate a report, let's just bring up a sample one here. When you generate a report, the individual totals for the page will always be the sum of all of the totals in that page. But what are the totals from other pages or the total times? Because in this case, we're only generating a portion of the data. So let's look into this now. If we were to generate a report from any of the groups that are here on your left-hand side, then you're essentially filtering your flights by whatever filter you've selected. So in this case here, I filtered by my P28 time. So in this case, because there's a filter applied, you will only be able to see here the flights that meet that criteria. And therefore, only those flights are going to count towards the totals. So in this case, you can see here that the totals for my P28 time is 1259.5. So even though this one here is actually in hours and minutes, you will see that if we scroll to the very end of the report here very quickly, then this is actually the totals that you can see here. Now, let's say, for example, that you needed to submit some paperwork to an insurance company and all they care about is your P28 time because that's what you're insuring. Then this is where this report comes in handy. But on the other hand, what if you print your reports every month, your logbook, sorry, every month, and then you add it to a binder? In that case, obviously, you want all of your totals to be there. So then that's where we can change it here. So down here, you will see that you can select a wide variety of filters time-wise. So last month, last quarter, last year, last 7 days, or even a custom date range. So in this case, for the example that we used, we say we want the last month to be generated. And then we generate that report, which will magically appear on the screen here. And then you can see that only the flights in September, which is the last month, will get printed on the report. But with that being said, the totals to date, all of them will be the totals of your overall logbook. So as we mentioned earlier, a couple of these things are slightly different on iOS. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to Thomas, and he's going to go through a couple of these things and how to do them on iOS.
There you go, Thomas, you're up.
Yeah, so iOS is a little bit different, but all the same functionality is there. On the Mac, when you filter from the logbook page, that transfers over to the Reports tab. If you're on iOS and you go to the Radar tab, you have all these same filters that the Mac logbook tab has. You have all entries, last 90 days, last 12 months. You have your smart groups, currency groups, limit groups. But to get these, you have to go through a different field. So if you select your report and you go to configure report, you can choose any of those filter groups here. And now you'll see that all these groups look the same as the Radar tab. This is where you can choose any of those filter groups to apply to your report. Now let's just talk really briefly, David mentioned on it, the difference between the last 90 days for a filter group. If I generate this report, it's filtering all my data for the last 90 days. So you will see at the bottom, it's only got my totals for the last 90 days. Whereas if I was to choose a custom date range, which also has last 90 days, it's actually going to generate the entire cumulative totals for your logbook. And that's why it's going to take a little bit longer here. But it's only going to show you the last 90 days of that logbook. So while the titles of these are the same, they're vastly different because if I scroll down here, you will see it's the totals for the logbook here at the bottom, all the totals, even though it's only displaying the last 90 days. That is the difference when you configure your report on iOS. That is the difference between a filter group and a custom date range. Obviously, you can choose a specific custom date range by this slider, but you can also choose some of these pre-canned date ranges we have in here. The other thing I wanted to show you real quick is David showed you how to go through and change your display options on the Mac in the Preferences tab. On iOS, you want to go to More, Display Options, and then here's where you can change your hours, minutes, hours, decimal. You can change your time zone to UTC. You can do it local time. You can do any time zone in the world, actually. And then also at the bottom of this screen is where you can designate how you want your airports to show, your aircraft to show, your names to show, all these things that you can customize. So we have talked a bit about how we have all these regional reports. Let's say you wanted to make your own kind of report that has only the columns that you want. This is possible in LogTen Pro using our dynamic reports in the general section. And I'm going to pass it off to Heather, who's going to explain a little bit how to do that.
All right, your screen is showing, Heather.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the intro and switch over, Thomas and Paul. All right, so our dynamic reports are quite fantastic, if I say so myself. Thomas mentioned they're found in the logbook section within the general subsection. And one thing to note that while these are dynamic reports, they will reflect the columns and fields of data that you have currently visible in your logbook tab. They are still limited because of physical limitations of paper size. So each of our dynamic reports contains a maximum of 14 columns per page. And we do offer a couple different options. We have a one-page logbook designed to be printed on A4 and letter, and a two-page logbook designed to be printed on A4 and letter size. So as a quick demo, I'm going to double click on our dynamic report with our last 90 days selected, just so you can see the order of the fields on Mac, and all of the current visible fields are going to show up unless it reaches that maximum of 14 columns. Looking through here, for me personally, a couple things that I'm noting is that maybe I don't want the remarks column here in between the PIC and SIC crew fields. Maybe I don't need the approach to column, and I'm not seeing an IFR time column, which I decided that I ended up wanting. So let's do a quick configuration to get those fields in the order that we like and visible. So I'm going to go into the logbook tab and preferences so that we can enable that IFR time field that wasn't currently there. In operations, I can deselect approach to, and now these fields will be showing up on the far right-hand side of the grid view. I do also see this remarks column that I can click and drag to be after the SICP2, and I'm going to click and drag IFR next to actual instrument, and approach 1 is there without approach 2. So this is all looking great, and I'm noting mentally that the remarks field is the last one in my list. Going back to the report, I'm going to double click again to do another generation, and we can see here is our IFR time field. Remarks is now on the right of SICP2, and it is included, and we do have approach 1 only without approach 2. Scrolling down to the bottom, the dynamic reports will also give you tallies. And on the A pages of this particular dynamic report is where you're going to place your signature. Over to you, Thomas, for a demo on how this looks on iOS.
All right, here you go, Thomas. You're up.
Thanks, Heather. On the iOS app, you can arrange the fields as well. You do that in the logbook tab. So let's say I have this logbook and I want nighttime to be up right below total time. So what you do is you click the action button in the top right, configure fields, and you get these 3 sliders. You can click and drag, and now you can have total time be after, and then nighttime SIC. You can change the order of these fields. But a nuanced difference between iOS and Mac is that on the Mac, you can change all the fields in any order you want. On iOS, you can change the order within each section. So I can change the order of these time fields. I can change the order of these flight fields. But I can't move a time field up above into a different section or above a section. So that's just something to note, a little bit of difference between the iOS and Mac app. So we have been looking at all these regional logbooks, which are by far the most popular logbooks. And there are subtle differences between all the regions. And I want to pass it off to David, who's going to talk about a couple of them. And one of the biggest questions we get is, why is my instrument time not showing in my logbook? And this is due to these regional variations that I was just talking about. And I'm going to throw it over to David, who's going to talk about that in more detail.
Right. You're on, David. Fire away.
Thank you very much, Paul and Thomas. So, as Thomas said, you will all be aware of the terms actual instrument and IFR. These two terms, and I have said it myself, and I have done it myself, they are used many times interchangeably. But there is a key difference in this case and beyond their actual meaning, and this difference is the local aviation authority. What do I mean by that? EASA, for example, they will use the term IFR, and then on the other hand, the FAA in the United States will use actual instrument. Each country will have their own thing. The implication of this are that the FAA, for example, they will model the reports and list, for example, their licensing requirements based on actual instrument, whereas EASA will do exactly that, but with IFR. This essentially makes them two separate things, and they are, in fact, two completely different fields in LogTen Pro. So you can actually see here, they're both displayed, and then they can have different values of IFR and actual instrument. So to put it in an example, you could actually have one flight that has 2 hours of total time, and then out of those 2 hours, 2 hours are IFR, and only 20 minutes of it are actual instrument. So when you generate a report, each report will pick and choose IFR and actual instrument as appropriate for the aviation authority of the country or region that you're generating the report of. So in the example that I was just talking about, an FAA report in that case would show 20 minutes of actual instrument, whereas if you were to generate a report with the same flight for EASA, that report will show 2 hours of IFR. So let's just bring up here an example of an EASA report. So this report here, you will see that on the second page here, they've got IFR and then all of the times here of IFR. Just before I move now to a Jepson Pro Pilot report for the state, just bear in mind that this is the exact same data set. So I'm actually going to put them side by side here. And then you can see these are exactly the same flights, the ones that I had on my screen earlier. So you can see that for IFR, there's certain values, and then for actual instrument, there's 18 minutes here and there, and this is for exactly the same data set. So what are the implications of this? If you've only logged IFR, and then you generate a report, for example, for the FAA or any country that only uses actual instrument, the actual instrument column will be empty. And then on the other hand, if you only log actual instrument, and then you generate a European report or of any country that uses IFR, then that column will actually be empty, as you can see in these two examples. So this is a uniqueness in a way that happens everywhere in the world, just purely because each aviation authority will choose either one or the other. But it is not the only uniqueness. Certain reports for certain countries will have their own little things. And for that, I'm going to go back to Thomas, and he's going to tell you about those in a bit more detail.
Hey, Thomas, you're muted.
Thanks, Heather. So, as David said, there's regional variations, and the reason we brought up actual instrument and IFR is because that is the most common question we get at LogTen Pro. But we do have an article on our website called Unique Report Features, and if you go to support.coradine.com, you can see and just search unique. This is going to be the first article that comes up. If you fly in Hong Kong and you're wondering, how do I populate P2X? This article will tell you how to do that. If you are in Brazil and you're wondering how to get TIPO to populate, this article can tell you how to do that. We actually had a comment come in wondering how to get SIM instruction time on an EASA report. This article will tell you how to do that. It is possible using the SFI, SFE field and the do given field, and can dual given field in conjunction on the EASA reports. Another common thing, useful article here is if you're flying in Australia or New Zealand and you're wondering how to get ground instrument time to populate, this article can tell you how to do that. While I'm in our help center, I just want to point out one other thing. Our flight audit report, which we introduced this year, it is downloadable from our help center. If you just Google the flight audit, if you just search flight audit report in our help center, it will come up here. There's a link in here to download it. We also have a video that you can watch that explains the flight audit report. So you just click this link in our help center, you allow it to download into LogTen Pro, and the report will appear in your My Reports section, and it'll be here titled Flight Audit Report. So just as an example here, I'm going to run last 12 months. I'm going to run my flight audit report, and you can see it came up with 2 issues. Entries where total seat time is different than total time, it has 1 flight flagged, and entries with no simulator time logged in a simulator type, it has another flight flagged. If you don't understand what it's flagging, again, this article has explains all the different sections in the flight audit report, and you can just expand these sections to see what it is looking at. If I go to my logbook and I look at this flight, 42920, I'm going to go to this year. I'm going to go to April, 42920. It was a 1-hour flight. You can see here that the reason it is flagged is because I have total time. I have some IFR, some cross country, but I don't have any seat time. So if I just was to log PIC time there and fix that flight, if I go back to my report and I run it again, you'll see that it fixed that flight. So I just wanted to point this out. This is on our website. Another thing I want to point out on our knowledge base, we did get a question about this in the comments. We have an article called "How Do I Add a Signature to the Bottom of a Custom Report?" It says custom report because you do currently have to create a custom report to add a signature to the bottom. But we also, this article is also available at our help center. And then I think we had one other question. I saw somebody come in about the dynamic reports, and they asked if you change the order on a Mac, will that transfer over to iOS? I believe that was the question. And I just want to answer that and say no, all configurations stay specific to your devices. So the way you have your fields on your Mac is specific to that device, so you would have to configure the fields on each device. And with that, I think I'll pass it back to Paul.
Great, thanks, and thanks, Luis, for your comment there. That's great that you've been with us since the beginning. I'll have to mention that to Noah. So you've been with us for a while. So thanks a lot. Yeah, I just wanted to open it up, see if there's any other questions. Looks like we've got one come in from Morgan Daniels here. How can I make it so my iOS device show my time per 5 minutes and not decimal? So time by minutes, hours, minutes, maybe? Is that the question there? Unless, Thomas, you...
Yeah.
On iOS?
On iOS? Yeah, sure. I could show that too. I have that. So if you, on iOS, if you go to More, and then Settings, Display Options, you can, at the top, you can change from hours decimal to hours minutes. And simple as that.
That's great. Thanks. So hopefully that answers your question, Morgan. Luis just asked another question regarding FAR 121 rules for pilots to track. And I don't know whether we want to highlight the smart groups and changing that, or what your suggestion is, Thomas or Heather or David.
Yeah, so you can, let's see, the 121 rules can be done via the Plan tab on the iOS app. You can make any limit groups, currency groups, REST groups. I'm using a sample logbook here, so it doesn't have a lot of data in it. But on the Plan tab on iOS, you make the groups for the 121 that you want, and then you can look at the data in the Plan tab. One thing I do want to point out is that you can download a bunch of 121 groups from our website as well. If you go to Smart Groups, and then if you look at the regional limit groups, we have some 117, Part 117 downloadable groups. The app also comes preloaded with quite a few smart groups. So if you look in the Radar tab, let's go to the Analyze tab to make this a little clearer. A lot of these preloaded groups, such as REST, are compliant with FAR 121, but they're customizable to what you want. So you see this REST is a week, 30 and 7, basically, is a 30 and 7 REST group. That comes preloaded in LogTen Pro. A lot of these limit groups are FAA or EASA specific. A lot of those come preloaded in LogTen Pro.
I'm just adding a link actually in for people to link straight through to those regional limit groups. So we can do that. So if people want to link through to that. The other thing I was going to say, Luis, in terms of those 121 cargo or on-demand operation limits, that if you could reach out to support, I'll actually put up a banner. I mean, I'm sure you know how to get, you've been with us for a while, so you know how to get to support. But I was going to suggest, like, if there's anything specific that you want to track, please connect with our support team. You know, they're masters at setting up these smart groups, and we could perhaps set up another set of groups that, you know, your colleagues could download as well. So please, yeah, connect with us on to the support team, and maybe we could get that set up for everyone. And in terms of signing your logbook, we did have that question come in a couple of times. The you can what I would suggest again is contacting support, and support team can help you with whatever logbook or specific logbooks you want to add your signature to. Just connect in via either tapping more help, contact support in your on your iOS device, or you can also get to us via support@cordine.com, which is here. All right. So I think we had a couple other questions here. Okay, yeah, so we did have a question around logging sim time. I'm going to copy and show and put this in the comment, or I can't remember who it was. Yeah, Shaw. On the simulator time front, here's a link for you. I'm just putting it up now.
For simulator time,
I'd be happy.
you definitely don't need to log total time. There's a specific simulator time field in LogTen Pro and you can log in that, and you don't have to log total time. So if I configure time here on the iOS app, you can see I can scroll down, I can activate the simulator time field, and now I have simulator time. And if I don't want total time, I can just delete that field. And now I have nothing but simulator in this flight.
That's great. Can you just do a quick overview on the actions button and how to get to where you got to in terms of configuring the fields? I'm sure everybody has an idea of it, but it'd be good to just review that quickly.
Yeah, on iOS in the logbook tab, when you go into an individual flight from the list, to edit any of the fields that are displayed, you click the action button, the 3-dot action button in the top right. Clicking on this, you'll get a variety of shortcuts, such as next leg, return trip, duplicate flight. This is where you can also sign the flight. You can share a flight with a crew member, but this is where you configure the fields as well. And when you configure fields, you'll see that each of these sections has a configure section underneath it now. And for whatever section you want your field to display, you go to that section, you look at all the available options, and you can choose to display anything you want or not display anything you want. I do want to note that just choosing a field to display or not display does not affect any times that are in those fields. The times don't go away. It just changes the way that those fields are displayed.
Great. So we did have a question from Morgan Daniels around requiring, I think you meant, but they now require that all instructional flights are signed by the instructor for the IAA, and how to do this. I'm not sure whether you're thinking about being able to batch edit a whole bunch of flights or whether you're just looking at signing instructional flights from now forward. I mean, maybe Thomas, you could just show quickly on iOS signing a flight.
Yeah, if you have a flight that needs to be signed, you would go into that flight, and then you would select the action button again, and then you would go to sign flight. You would choose the name of the instructor. You can add the certificate number of that instructor and the certificate instructor's expiry date if you want. And then I'm using a trackpad, so it's a little bit harder, but this is where you would sign. And done. And now that flight is signed, and you can see at the top of my flight, it says Cordine signature. And if I click on that, you can see the signature. But one thing I want to note is that make sure all the data in your flight is correct before you get it signed, because once a flight is signed, it is locked. And if you unlock that flight, you can see down here at the bottom, this flight is now locked. If I try to unlock this flight, I'm going to get a pop-up that says, this flight has a signature, you can unlock it, but that signature is going to be deleted. So if you want to get your flight signed, that's how you do it, but just please make sure that all the data is correct first. This is a way to make the integrity of the signature secure.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. We did have a question from Niles about direct airline roster import. I just want you to know it is definitely something we're thinking about. So obviously not there yet. We do have direct roster import for over 100 airlines on the Mac version of LogTen Pro, so it's already available. I'm not sure whether your airline is covered, but please feel free to reach out to support@cordine.com, or through your app, and we can help you with that. So there is direct import from the Mac. Our signature is displayed when printing the logbook. So when you export the logbook, Thomas.
They will show it, yes. They will show for almost all the reports. They will show in the remarks field.
Hopefully that answers your question, Morgan. I'm not sure which logbook you're wanting to export, but yeah, it appears in the remarks field. Is that correct, Thomas?
Yeah, and I just signed this flight on October 12th. So if I just to generate a report, and since I'm here, I'm just going to choose this. I'm going to choose this month. And there you can see the signature is in the remarks. Quite the signature I have there, but so that's where signed flights will show the signature.
It's a good signature there, Thomas. Thanks for that. Awesome. Alrighty. Not sure if I missed. There's quite a few questions that came in. We got the signature question. We got the duty limits, or the FAR 121 limits. And Luis, as I said, please connect in with support. We'd love to help you with that and set it up for others as well. I'm just trying to see whether... I'm just looking back, see if there's any other questions we can answer now. Feel free to fire any questions you have into the chat. Thank you. And also, thanks very much, everybody, for joining. You know, it's been great. We've had tons of cool questions, lots of people from all over the world. Really appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, I guess Morgan's printing out the EASA report. So it'd be the European report, and just seeing if that has the signatures on it. But I believe it does. Hey, Thomas? Francis, sounds like you had an issue with getting reports on your iPhone, and your LogTen Pro's emptied or something went wrong with the data. Please connect in with the support team. Not sure if you have done yet, but support@coredyne.com or directly through your device, and we can look into that and sort it out for you. See what we can do. So please, yeah, definitely connect in with us. Might be good, Thomas or Heather or David. Anybody jump in, although Thomas seems to be on screen, so I keep going to him. Just to highlight the backup options, maybe. It might be good to do in both, on both Mac and iOS. So I guess you're on iOS right now, Thomas, hey or no?
Yeah, I could do that real quick. So in our last release, one of the great new features that we added was two things. Both Dropbox backup integration and the in-app backup was added to the Mac app. So if I go to more settings, backup, you can see you now have two options to store your backup. You can keep it in Dropbox, or you can keep it in iCloud. So, and then if you don't need one or the other, you can click this edit button up here and you can disable one from showing. So if I disabled iCloud and I go back, you'll see I only see Dropbox here. In case anybody doesn't know, you can just add a backup by hitting the plus button. And then the same functionality is on the Mac. And then I don't know if Heather or David wants to show that.
That'd be great. David, maybe you up for showing that? You got your screen here?
Yeah, certainly. That's me, I'm up. So essentially pretty straightforward. As soon as you open the LogTen Pro up, you will see that at the top right corner, next to the Notum's little icon, there's a backups. So you click on that, then the first thing that you will see is a list of the backups that have been created in any of your devices. So, and you can filter here on the left-hand side whether you want to show the backups in iCloud or in Dropbox. In this case, I haven't connected to Dropbox yet, but then it is a very straightforward process. You just need to click on Get Started here, and LogTen Pro will guide you through the entire process to get everything connected. Be it in iCloud or be in Dropbox, to create a new backup, just click the plus button here at the bottom, and then it'll go through all your data all created. And there you go. It gives you a nice little summary here of how many flights, how many hours, and then you will see here in the progress bar that that's already uploaded to iCloud. So that'll be ready to be downloaded or exported in any way I can, in any way I want. So I can restore it, or even I can send it to myself on to my phone or to my email just for extra safety.
I've got a couple questions. One from Abdul Kadir Hamza around, looks like he's been filling in IFR and actual flight in the wrong, flipped around, and he wants to correct it. This would be something that you'd have to do on the Mac in terms of a batch edit. And David, since you're on screen, would you be okay to show a quick kind of?
Yeah, certainly. This will be, as Paul said, it is something that is purely based on the size of the screen. You will have to do on your Mac. If you do not have access to the Mac, please do get in touch with us, and then we can get it done for you. But basically, you can just select the flights that you want to change. So let's say in this case, for this example, let's say that I want all of my flights to reflect the value of actual instrument, the same value as total time. So I can just select all of those flights, go down here on the right hand side and find actual instrument, which in this case is the value that we want to change. So if it was, I don't know, cross country, then you would find cross country on this list. So if you go to actual instrument, just tap the space bar, and then everything automatically autofills based on the total time. So I've done it here with 11 flights, but let's say that you wanted to do it with a few more flights, then you can just select as many flights as you want. You just have to hold the shift key between the first flight and the last flight. So I've already selected a flight here at the top. If I scroll all the way and then find the last flight that I want to edit, for example, this one, before I click it, I hold the shift key on your keyboard, and then it will select all of them. And then same again, let's bring actual instrument here visible so that you can see the changes live. And then you can just click on actual instrument and then tap once more this space bar, and then everything will just, LogTen Pro will do its magic.
That's great.
David, can you go to About LogTen Pro and show the version number that you need to have the backup feature? I saw that somebody mentioned they don't have that. You definitely need to have the latest version of LogTen Pro, which is?
Yeah, so as Thomas said earlier, you will have the latest version. So you can check, if you go to LogTen Pro here, like we did earlier, go to About LogTen Pro and click on that, and you'll see a new window coming up, and you will see here, just underneath the name, it will say version 2020.2 Defender. That is the version, the 2020.2 that you're gonna need to have the backup. If for any reason you've got 2020.1, for example, then you can go to the App Store, and then you can update the app from there.
Great, thanks. That's great. So any other questions from anyone? We've hit our hour, but yeah, if there's anything specifics anybody wants to ask.
I saw Francis mention the flights are deleted by mistake and we're not backed up yet. Yeah, if they're deleted, then that would be unfortunate. But that's a reason why it's important to create backups frequently, and you can create as many backups as you want. So
Yeah, and Heather was just saying that when you do contact support, Francis, let them know to mention, just make sure you let them know about the flight deletion you've been experiencing when you get in touch. I don't know if you want to add a thing to that, Heather.
Yeah, just make sure to mention it, and depending on what sort of sync settings you have enabled, whether it's iCloud sync or Wi-Fi sync or how many devices you're using LogTen Pro on, we're always happy to explore all the options and see if maybe there's a device that has those deleted flights that has not yet been synced with those changes, or whatever other options. Maybe you're using LogTen on a Mac and you have Time Machine enabled. That would be another way that we could go back and look for any potential deleted flights, sort of going back in time. So a couple options, just make sure to let us know.
Great. And thanks for the question, Morgan, around pricing. Right now, we don't have any plans to shift pricing or do a low-hour pilot package, but I'll definitely take that to the team. One thing to mention, if you're not requiring it on all devices, the iOS only is one option that would reduce the cost annually for sure. But yeah, I'll take that to the team, and we can discuss it internally. And yeah, please feel free to reach out to support if you want to talk about it with us direct.
We also have a social media campaign going on, the LogTen Life, where you can submit photos and tag us and the LogTen Life hashtag and be entered to win a, is it 10-year subscription, Paul?
I think we're doing 3 5-year this year. It's either
3 5-year subscriptions.
So yeah, you can definitely get just, thank you, Heather. You, I should have remembered that myself, being the marketing guy. Anyways, hashtag LogTen Life. Yeah, just post pictures and you get a chance to win a 5 or 10-year subscription. I gotta remember that, but that's the hashtag. So yeah, might be able to get it free with a good picture.
We also, depending on what airline you might be flying for, if you are, we have a number of partnerships and deals set up for some specific airlines. So you can always get in touch with us and let us know. We'd be happy to check and see if we've got any special offers.
Great. All right, I'll just put up the banner there. So there's our support site for everyone. All right. So last call for questions, please. And of course, the support email and connection website is up there on the screen. Feel free to contact us at any time. Our support team is fantastic. And yeah, thanks a lot, Vincent. Thanks for joining, everyone. And yeah, as I said, please reach out to us. We are very happy to help. Right, guys?
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Always.
Yeah, thank you.
And if there's any webinars you want to see, we're always open to those suggestions too.
Absolutely. Right on. So yeah, look out for the emails coming out for the next webinar. And thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your presence here with us today.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, right on.
Thanks, everyone.
Give us a chance to wave. All right.